Have you ever felt like you're in a constant losing battle with procrastination? I mean, you know what you should do, but you just can't make yourself do it. Well, what if I told you that you could actually re-engineer your own brain to not just tolerate discipline, but to actually crave it? Sounds impossible, right? Well, let's break down the science of how you can make that happen.
Seriously, why is it so tough? We all start out with the best of intentions, We're going to exercise more, we're going to eat healthy, we are definitely going to finish that big project. But then life happens, and we just don't. And we're left scratching our heads wondering, what's wrong with me? It's a feeling we all know, but the answer? It's probably not what you think.
Okay, and this is so important, so listen up. The problem isn't that you're lazy or undisciplined. It is not a moral feeling. That resistance you feel, I can't, it's actually a predictable, hardwired feature of our neurobiology. And the best part? Because it's a system, it's not some mystery. You can learn to work with it instead of constantly fighting against it. You can literally hack that design flaw.
To do that, first, we've got to understand the enemy. So in this first section, we're going to dive into why our brains are basically programmed to resist effort. It all comes down to a concept that scientists call limbic friction. Think of limbic friction like this. It's that mental barrier, that activation energy you need just to get off the couch. It's the voice in your head that says, I really don't want to. It's basically a neurological tug of war between the part of your brain that knows you should go to the gym and the more primitive part that would much rather conserve energy and watch another episode. So deep inside your brain, there's this little biological accountant, and it is constantly running a cost-benefit analysis. Before you do literally anything, it's asking one simple question. Is the reward I think I'm going to get from this worth the energy I think I'm going to have to spend? If that cost feels too high, you get hit with a massive dose of limbic friction. Now, if we look at the actual hardware here, the real MVP is this region called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, or AMCC for short. You can think of this as the CEO of your willpower. It's the hub that's taking in all the data, how much effort, how big's the reward, and it makes that final go or no-go decision. And get this, the bigger and more active this region is, the better you are at pushing through tough stuff.
So if the AMCC is the CEO, was the currency it's dealing in? Well, that brings us to our next section, and probably the most misunderstood chemical in the entire game of motivation, dopamine.
For years, right, we've been told dopamine is the pleasure molecule. But that's just not the whole picture. See, dopamine isn't really about the pleasure of having something. It's the motivational fuel that makes you pursue it. It's about the wanting, not the liking. In fact, there are these crazy studies where rats with zero dopamine will still enjoy sugar if you put it right in their mouths, but they won't move an inch to go get it themselves. No pursuit.
And here is the huge problem for us in the modern world. Things like endlessly scrolling social media or playing video games, they give us these huge, unnatural spikes of dopamine. Your brain, trying to protect itself, basically turns down the volume on its own receptors. This raises your baseline level of stimulation, which makes the slow, subtle rewards of disciplined work, like reading a book or cleaning the kitchen, feel incredibly boring and totally unmotivated.
Okay, so our brains are kind of lazy, and our modern world is hijacking our motivation. Sounds pretty bleak, right? But what do we do about it? Well, in this section, we're going to see how we can use this knowledge to our own advantage. It's time to hack the system. This first strategy is just brilliant, and it's so simple. It's called temptation bundling. The idea is, instead of trying to fight your brain's desire for instant gratification, you lean into it. You harness it. You simply link something you want to do with something you know you should do. The researcher behind this, Catherine Milkman, gives this perfect example. Let's say you love that new show everyone's talking about, but you absolutely hate going to the gym. The solution? You make a new rule for yourself. You are only allowed to watch that show while you're on the treadmill. All of a sudden, the gym doesn't seem so bad, does it? It's become the gateway to the thing you actually want. And this isn't just some cute idea, it really works. In a famous study they nicknamed the Hunger Games at the gym, they gave people access to addictive audiobooks like The Hunger Games, but, and here's the catch, they could only listen while they were at the fitness center. The result? They increased their gym visits by a whopping 51% compared to the control group. That's the power of bundling. Now, it's pretty easy to get temptation bundling confused with another popular technique called habit stacking. So let's just clear this up. Bundling pairs a want with a should. Listen to your favorite podcast while you do the laundry.
Stacking, on the other hand, links a new habit you want to start with an old habit you already have, like after I brush my teeth, I will floss one tooth. Both are super powerful, they just solve slightly different problems. Okay, so we've got some powerful strategies in our back pocket. But how do we apply these and other techniques in our messy everyday lives, especially when our motivation just completely tanks? Let's get practical.
One of the most effective ways to stay consistent is to stop treating discipline like it's this awful chore and instead start treating it like a game you actually want to play and win. This is the whole idea behind what's called gamification, using fun mechanics from games to make real-world stuff more engaging.
So why does this work so well? Well, it taps into some really deep psychological drivers. Take building a streak, for example. That triggers something called loss aversion, our powerful innate desire to not lose something we've worked for. I mean, once you have a 10-day streak of meditating, the desire to not break the chain becomes this incredibly powerful motivator all on its own.
Okay, long-term strategies are great, love them. But what about in the heat of the moment? That intense, sudden urge to ditch your work and eat a cookie, or mindlessly check your phone, or just stop whatever hard thing you're doing? What can you do right then and there? There's this amazing technique called urge surfing. And instead of trying to fight the urge or just giving in, you treat it like a wave in the ocean. First, you just acknowledge it's there, no judgment. Then, you get curious about it. Notice how it actually feels in your body. Maybe a tightness in your chest, some restlessness. And then you just ride it out, knowing that every single urge, just like a wave, will eventually peak and then fade away all on its own. All right, we've talked about the brain, we've talked about the reward system, we've covered some really practical techniques. But now we get to the final and honestly the most powerful piece of this entire puzzle. This is where the real, lasting change happens. It's all about the identity shift. The author James Clear talks about how behavior change happens on 3 levels. Now, most of us, we focus on the outside layer, outcomes, what we want to get, like losing weight. A better approach is to focus on the next layer in, the process, what you do, like going to the gym. But the deepest, most permanent change comes from focusing on the very core, your identity, who you believe you are. And this, right here, is the big secret. The ultimate goal isn't just to run a marathon, it's to become a runner. The goal isn't just to write a book, it's to become a writer. Because when a behavior is just a natural extension of your identity, willpower isn't even part of the equation anymore. You're not forcing yourself to do anything, you're just being you. I absolutely love this quote because it makes the whole process so tangible. Going to the gym, especially when you don't feel like it, isn't just one workout. No, it's a vote. It's you casting a vote for your identity as a healthy, disciplined person. Writing just one page is a vote for being a writer. And these little votes, they add up over time, building this mountain of undeniable evidence of who you really are. So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with that one simple question. Every single choice you make, every little action you take today is casting a vote for the person you are becoming. The only question left is, who are you voting for?